So the world just got a huge update on climate change. It comes from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, which is basically the planet's top scientific body on this subject. Their latest report is absolutely massive, thousands and thousands of pages, but it really tells two totally different stories. We're going to break down both, the hard truths and the surprising glimmers of hope hidden inside all that data.
So what's the verdict? Is it good news or is it bad news? Well, the honest answer is it's both. The report tells two completely conflicting stories at the same time. The first one is like a 5-alarm fire, an urgent warning. But the second one? It's a story of incredible progress that almost no one would have predicted just a decade ago. Let's unpack them both.
Okay, before we can really get our heads around the numbers in this report, we have to understand the basic mechanics of what's actually happening. So let's do a super quick refresh on the fundamental science of how our planet's atmosphere traps heat.
It all boils down to something called the greenhouse effect. Just picture a single molecule of CO2 from a car's exhaust floating up into the sky. When energy from the Earth tries to escape back out into space, that little molecule basically vibrates and grabs it, trapping the heat. Then it eventually releases that energy, and a lot of the time, it sends it right back down to Earth. Now multiply that by trillions upon trillions of molecules, and well, you get a warming planet.
All right, with that basic science in mind, let's turn to that first, and yeah, most difficult story from the report, the sobering reality of where we are today.
And this is the single biggest headline. I mean, despite all the talk, all the promises, the hard data shows that as a planet, we are emitting more greenhouse gases than ever before. This is the crucial context for everything else that follows.
The report puts a hard number on it.
In 2019, humanity's net emissions hit 59 gigatons of CO2 equivalent. That equivalent part is just a way of lumping all the different greenhouse gases, like methane, into one single metric. The bottom line, though, 59 gigatons, an all-time high.
And to give you some perspective on that number, it represents a staggering 54% increase from 1990 levels. So in the last 30 years, even as our understanding of this problem has grown, our emissions have gone up by more than half.
But, and this is a really crucial piece of nuance, while the total is still going up, the speed of that increase is actually slowing down. The rate of growth in the last decade was significantly lower than the decade before it. Now, look, it's not a victory, not yet, but it is a sign that the curve might just be starting to bend.
This graph right here is maybe the most important visual in the entire report. That top line, that's where our current policies are taking us. This funnel down here, that's where we need to be to avoid the worst impacts of climate change. And that massive growing space between them, that's the emissions gap. It is the clearest possible picture of the gulf between what we're promising and what we're actually doing.
And here's one of the scariest things in the report. The scientists found that if we just run the power plants, factories, and cars we have already built until they wear out, their emissions alone will push us past that 1.5-degree target. Just think about that. We've already built a future of dangerous warming unless we actively choose to change course and retire all that stuff early.
Okay, that was the hard truth, but it is not the whole story. Now we get to turn to the second, more hopeful narrative in this report, and this is where things get genuinely exciting. Just look at this. Between 2010 and 2019, the cost of solar energy dropped by 85%. Wind energy fell by 55%, and the lithium-ion batteries that power electric vehicles and store clean energy also down 85%. This isn't just a small change, it's a full-on technological revolution.
And when technology gets this cheap, one thing happens. You see more of it, a lot more of it. The report shows this collapse in cost has fueled an absolute explosion in use. Solar energy deployment, for instance, has increased more than tenfold in that same period. What was once a niche technology is now becoming completely mainstream.
And the good news isn't just about the tech itself. Policy is really starting to catch up. The report found real, sustained progress. For example, you've got at least 18 countries that have successfully cut their emissions for over a decade straight. Policies like carbon taxes now cover over a fifth of global emissions, and direct climate laws are in place for over half. You can see the framework for action is spreading across the world.
But these big global numbers can hide a lot of the complexity. To get the full picture, you have to ask, who is actually responsible for all these emissions? And the answer is deeply, deeply uneven. This chart is staggering. It looks at consumption-based emissions, so not just what a country produces, but what its people buy and use. And it finds that the top 10% of households globally are responsible for almost half of those emissions. Meanwhile, the entire bottom 50% of the world's population contributes only around 15%. It's just a stark reminder of the deep inequality at the very heart of this problem.
And this inequality plays out between regions, too. The average North American emits 19 tons of CO2 equivalent per year. The average person in Southern Asia, just 2.6 tons. These vast differences in historical and current emissions are a really critical part of finding any kind of fair and effective solution.
So we have these two competing stories, a reality of record-high emissions, but also incredible progress in the solutions we need. And this brings us to a crossroads, a really decisive moment for bridging that gap we saw earlier.
Hey, remember that emissions gap chart from before? Let's look at it again, but through a totally new lens. This isn't a forecast. The report frames it as a choice. The paths are clearly laid out. We can stay on this high emissions road we're on, or we can take the exit and rapidly bend that curve down to meet our goals. The science is clear. Both of those paths are still open to us.
So the crucial point is this. Act 1, the reality is that our emissions are higher than ever, but their growth is slowing. Act 2, the hope is that our best tools for fixing this are cheaper and more available than ever before. And Act 3, the challenge is that a massive gap still remains and we are running out of time to close it.
Ultimately, what this landmark report makes so clear is that the whole conversation has changed. The era of asking if we can tackle climate change is over. The tools are here, the economics have completely flipped. So the only question left is one of will. Do we have the collective will to act at the speed and scale that science now demands of us?